Hey, this is Carrie the Canary Quilts, and we are on week 50 of our Dear Jane Quilt Along, which means we're working on the border out here. We are so close. Next week we're going to do, or in 2 weeks we're doing scallop borders, and then it's going to be done and we're going to be on to quilting. So I did have it set up on my schedule that I think it was the third week in February we would be doing quilt assembly, but it kind of changed as I went along and I started assembling it as I went. So I think I'll move up the quilting to that week. I will let you know. I do have my schedule on my website, which is in the link, which is a link down below this video. If you're new here, I am using EQ8 to create this quilt. There is a Dear Jane add-on for it, and that's what I've been using, and I've been utilizing everything I can in that Dear Jane add-on. So when I start to quilt it, I will be using their quilt lines, or the best that I can use their quilt lines. So I am standing on a ladder right now because this thing is so big. I wanted to hang it. I wanted to show you the corner, not just one border. So here's, this is the left side border. I can't remember how it is in the quilt, if this is left or right, but this is the top. My number one block, A1, is over there out of the frame. And this is the top right corner. I am going to quickly go into EQ8, show you where you can find these plain triangles and print them out. I use the templates. Then I'm going to show you how I put these together, how I put them onto the center of the quilt, and how I get my corner in. I never did show the tiny little inner border here, so you'll be able to find it in the quilt and then figure out how much fabric you need to do it. It wasn't hard at all. But anyway, I did show all of the center, sashing, and cornerstones, putting it together, and now we're going on to our borders. And look at my quilt, it's so pretty. We've had several people who are done. I'm going to start rolling their pictures right now. I think there's 3 done. If I'm wrong, you'll see more pictures. They have turned out so pretty. Oh my gosh. I don't think this quilt could be ugly. I think if you use the ugliest fabrics you can find, this quilt would be gorgeous. There were some people who did a white background. There was one who did a red background, and you can see I'm doing a scrappy background, and so is my mom. My mom has been deciding what she wants to do, and she saw mine and was like, I think I'll do a scrappy background. I cut my fabrics probably 6 months ago, and so these are fabrics that are somewhere over here in the center of my quilt. So there you go. We are ready to almost finish this out. Let me know if you're still working along with me or if you finished the quilt. If you put your quilt on your social media, and then you can tag Canary Quilts. I have an email that you can get a hold of me on. A couple people have done that where they've emailed me the picture and then I share them out on my social media. So I would love to share your quilt when it is done. And just let everybody marvel at it. So let's head into EQ8 real quick, and then we'll head over to our border blocks at the machine. So exciting. Hit the subscribe button, notification bell if you want to continue on this journey. And we've got lots of other fun things on this channel. So let's get started. I just wanted to jump back in here into EQ8 real quick and go over where we get our plain triangles from that are in the border. So you need to open the master file for the Dear Jane add-on in EQ8. And you'll open up this quilt here from the sketchbook. And what we want to do is down at the bottom, underneath the quilt, let's turn off layer 2. We're just going to click that I. Oops. There we go. Our layer 1, I'm sorry, we want to turn off layer 1, so then we can go to layer 2. I'm going to click on layer 2. I'm in print and export, which is at the top, and I want to print a template. Whoops, I need to click on one of the triangles, click on template, and that way we can grab our template for the triangle. And I'm just going to move it over onto one page, rotate it. Oops, went too far. And then it all fits on one page. So you can print that, and you're going to need 56 of these of whatever color you want to do. I did scrappy color. I've seen the background color. I've seen red. So whatever color you want to do, just make sure you have 56 of these cut out and ready to go. So that's all we need to do to prepare for our borders in this video. Pretty easy. We are working on the borders now. I have put one side border on, top row border, and the row starts and ends with a solid triangle. So that's what we're going to do. So we'll start with this triangle. We'll start adding as we go along. So I'll add number 1 to a solid, add a solid, number 2, solid, just alternating like that, making sure we're keeping our edge straight here and down here, as straight as we can make it. Some of these were a little askew, but I was able to work with them to get them straight. So the other thing I'm going to do is I am going to put top row on like this with no corners, and the bottom row on with no corners. And then the 2 side rows, when I get to those, I will put the 4 corners on those, so that when I add it over here, I just need to make a pivot and come up here instead of trying to put a Y seam in right here with the corner. I will just need to put this in. That's the plan at the moment. Sometimes it changes as you go along, but anyway, that's the plan. So let's get my quilt out of the way. I'm doing random triangle colors. I cut these, I think, with I cut a bunch of blues and things like that. I've just been pulling the different colors out and randomly putting them in here so that I don't have like a bunch of blues on one edge. So that's just how I've been doing it. Everybody's been doing it differently. So let's get started putting these together. Since we're at the beginning, I'm just going to grab this top blue one and my number 1, bottom row number 1. And I'm going to take this off for the moment. And what I've been doing is just doing my best to line up these notches. And actually, I've had more success lining up this point and this point on the notch. Same thing down here. Especially with these blocks here, sometimes these notches don't get cut out very well. So that's how I've been doing it. Every once in a while, I get a really nice one. And then I'm sewing these together along this edge, and I have been ironing towards my solid. Everybody may feel differently about it, but that's how I'm doing it, because there's, and a lot of these have like seams on the edge, so that's one reason I've been doing it. There's no seams in the solid. So I'm going to get this sewn and ironed towards that solid triangle. There's my first 2 pieces put together, and like I said, I'm starting on bottom row 1, Rosemary's Rainbow. I'm going to keep this one on. The rest of these I will pull off. I just want to know, I know we'll only go on one way, but I just want to know this is my first one. So just fold that over. Let's grab this brown. That looks good. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Put it on. Do my best to line up my notches. And again, I'm going to line up the corner of these notches together with each one. Get this sewn on, and I'm ironing towards the solid. This looks good. This looks good. So I'm going to continue on here. I'm going to grab my number 2 on the bottom row. Like I said, I don't need this anymore. Throw it away. And I like to line up the solid on top of my Dear Jane block. So let's line up my point. And I think that looks good. So I'm going to get it sewn. That's how I'm going to do all these. I think I'll come back about halfway through and show you my lines on the top and the bottom. I got 6 of my Dear Jane blocks on. What I'm doing is I'm using this line on my cutting board as my guide to see how I'm doing. And up here, looks like maybe this block needs to be just trimmed a little bit there. So I'll probably go along and do it, but I'm still maintaining, good enough at the top also for my height. So I just keep doing that as I go along just to make sure I'm not like going at an angle or anything like that. So I'm going to finish my row up. I've got my row done. This is my bottom row. And I did go along and just line it up with this, one of these lines, and then trimmed it. And this is really all that I trimmed off. There wasn't much to trim off, just some of these corners were sticking out, or these points. So that's kind of what I trimmed out. So I am ready now to put it on my quilt. Okay, my row's done. This is my bottom row. I've oriented my quilt so that my bottom row is right here. And, yep, want to make sure. I know which is M13. That's why I know. And ideally what you want to happen is for your points to land right in the middle of your sashing. So that's how I'm going to go along first and line up my whole row. Is the points are going to go in the center of this sashing right here. And then I'm going to see how it fits in between. So I'm just going to find my point and center it. Centered, lined up on the edge, and pin. And it looks like my green falls right, or at least this point, the edge of it falls on the edge of my sashing over here. So I think I'll just pin that there. I'll go to the next one. And I'm going to do that all the way to the end and then check out how it looks once I get there. I'll probably be pinning in between also. Got my pins in. A couple of these I threw some pins in the middle just to help keep the two edges just together. Some of these, they fit really nice. So yeah, it looked really good. Worked out really well that way. So I'm going to get this sewn, and on the other one, I actually ironed towards the border. This sashing is so small. It didn't, when I was trying to iron towards the sashing, it didn't feel like it wanted to go there at all. So I ended up ironing towards the border. There's my bottom border put on. I did iron towards the border. So that's what it looks like. It turned out really well. What I'm going to do now is for the right and left side borders, I'm going to put them together just like this, the one I just showed you. But I will then, once they're together, I'm going to be adding the corners. So I'm going to get them together, and then I'll come back when I'm done and we'll go over the corners, how I'm going to do them. I got my other 2 rows done, and I've got 2 corners put on. Let's see, I'm working with left side. And the left side would get these 2 corners. And they went on really easy, just matching up the bottom and the top, just like we did with the other ones. So did anybody else find applique that they missed? I found out I'd missed both of these appliques. And then there was a couple of border pieces that I found out I missed this one. I forgot to do the applique down here, if you can believe that. That was a big one. Just wondering if anybody else ran into that as they're putting their quilt together. I think I'm going to have to go over the entire quilt one more time just to make sure I didn't miss anything else. I did notice on a couple center blocks I missed a couple little pieces. So the other 2 corner blocks are going to be, let's see, we've got right side 1 here. So this block is going to go next to right side 1, and then this one's going to go on the other side. So it's going to go on like that. Flip it over, and just flip it all over. And it lines up pretty good. Hardly have a tail here and hardly have a tail there. So I am ironing towards the solid plain triangle right there. So I'm going to get both of these on and we'll take a look at it. But it goes on really easy. There we go. Got the corners on. This must be the right side. Yep. So you want your straight edge right here to be at the points of your Dear Jane blocks. Because I didn't do that over here. I sewed the wrong side. Had to rip it out. Anyway, we are now ready to put these on our quilt. I'm going to do one and see how it goes for me and then show you how I did it. I got my other side in and it went pretty good. I do have a corner I need to work on, I think, but letting it sit on me for now. So we need to line up our corner over here on this edge. We're going to have a little bit of a pivot right here, and then I'm doing the same thing where I'm lining these points up halfway in my sashing right here. So this seam is halfway in the sashing, so I'm going to line my point up with that seam. Like that. And pin that down. I have a lot of threads going on right there. So you can just kind of turn this, and there is hardly a tail there. So let's get this straightened out and we can get this pinned. Okay, we've got that pinned. So now we can just kind of straighten this out. This will be kind of folded up while you're doing that. And I'm going to go along, line my point up with the middle of my sashing. And then when I get to the other side, I'm going to do the same thing I did here. Line up my seam with my point. I got to the other side and I did the same thing. I lined up the point of this triangle with the seam of the sashing. So now we need to start sewing. And our quilt is getting big. First thing I want to do, need to come back over here and get this side straightened back up so that I have a flat seam. Well, that hurt. Hit my pin. It's a paper. So I have a flat edge right here. And I'm going to sew up here, and I'm going to sew right here. You can see this seam right here. This is the point. Right there's the point. Probably is hard to see. That's the point of my triangle. And that's what I lined up with the seam. So I am going to stop sewing at that point and then reposition everything so I've got this straight edge, and then I can move on. And then when we get to the other side, I'm going to sew all the way to the other side till I get to that seam, that point right there on the other side. Do the same thing, needle down, stop, get everything turned so I have a straight edge on my corner again. So, whoops. All right, I'm going to put this in my machine. I've got it so everything's flat underneath my corner. All right, I reached that point. Now I'm going to kind of move everything over here underneath the corner so that it's flat until I get to the other corner. And from here, we just keep on sewing. So I reached my the corner of my triangle right here, my plain triangle, and I'm just going to adjust it all my fabrics so that now my corner is flat, and that'll make the turn for me. So that seam right there is where I stopped my needle, and then I just adjusted all my fabric under here so that it'd be flat going this way. Now I'm going to iron everything towards my border. That's what my corner looks like. There's a lot there, but that looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And here's the other corner right here. I'm happy with that point too. So yeah, that turned out pretty good. What did you think of how I put my border together? Is that how you put it together? Did you put your corner in the way I did? It wasn't too hard. I did have to rip out a corner. It wasn't this one. It just got pushed or something as I was sewing, so I did have to rip it out, and I realigned it and got it back on, and it looks great. So I'm really happy with it. I think my borders have turned out beautiful, and they weren't too hard. You just got to kind of try to keep them straight as you're going along, and if you do that, then everything's going to fit together nicely. So next time we're on to the scallop borders. You can see how I'm doing them. I'm doing them per the templates in EQ8 Dear Jane add-on, and we'll see how they go together. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for going on this journey. I love seeing your quilts. I love hearing from you. And hit the subscribe button, notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.